What's up everyone? Right next to me here I have the Corsair Crystal Series 570X mid-tower premium computer case. We're going to unbox this thing and take an in-depth look at what it has to offer, and then we're going to throw some hardware inside and see what it looks like. Stick around, because this could be the case for you. One of the first things that you'll notice when you unbox the case is that all four of the tempered glass side panels, that's the two sides, the top and the front, are coated in a protective sort of removable plastic film. I would recommend leaving this plastic film on the glass side panels until you complete your build, just because you don't want to get it covered in fingerprints and you certainly don't want to get any scratches on it. After all, this really is a showcase. The first thing that I'm going to do in order to give you a closer look is actually go ahead and remove all four of the tempered glass side panels, and those are very easy to remove. You can just do it by hand with these four little thumb screws that are included on every single side panel. Simply remove those, remove your side panels, set them aside. Now that we have our tempered glass panels removed from the case, it's time to take a closer look at what's underneath. Corsair has included three pre-installed 120mm RGB LED fans in the front panel. These are controlled by a central fan controller hub that is located on the right side of the case that we'll look at in further detail shortly. Immediately in front of the fans is a pre-installed dust filter that is just sort of snapped in place magnetically. It's very easy to remove when you need to access it to clean it, and also when you need to access the fans behind it. On top of the case, there's actually another dust filter that works the exact same way. It just sort of pops off magnetically, easy to remove as well. There's actually a third dust filter mounted under the power supply shroud that just sort of slides out of place. That one is not held in place magnetically, but just as easy to remove when you need to access it. Taking a look at some of the physical dimensions, the case itself measures 480 millimeters long by 234 millimeters wide by 512 millimeters tall. Inside the case, we have support for ATX motherboards up to 272 millimeters. The maximum GPU clearance length is 370 millimeters. The maximum CPU cooler height that you can use is 170 millimeters. And the maximum power supply length is 225 millimeters. And of course, the power supply gets mounted inside this included power supply shroud. In terms of liquid cooling solutions, the front panel officially supports radiators up to 360 millimeters in size, and the top panel will support radiators up to 240 millimeters in size. Both the top and front panels of the case have removable mounting trays for your fans and radiators to really assist with the mounting process. This is actually a really nice feature to have. The back of the case is pretty standard, with room for a 120 millimeter fan, your I/O shield cutout, 7 expansion slots which are secured in place individually with thumb screws on the inside of the case, and finally your power supply mounting area. And actually here's a view of that dust filter that I was talking about earlier. You can just sort of slide that out for easy cleaning and then just slide it back in. Taking a look at the top of the case, we have our power button, 3 fan controller buttons, and it's important to note that these do not control the fan speed, they are only lighting controls. Moving along, you have a headphone jack, a microphone jack, and 2 USB 3.0 ports. This is the side of the case where things start to get interesting. There's a box of hardware sitting in one of the drive bays that you can just sort of pull out. This box includes some mounting hardware for hard drives and solid state drives, and also has some items to assist with cable management. There are 2 drive bays for your 3.5-inch drives located here and here. 2 drive bays for your 2.5-inch drives located here and here. These are all toolless mounting drive bays. You can just sort of slide your drives in and out of these things, pretty standard stuff. Right next to the 2.5-inch drive bays is the Corsair Fan Controller Hub that I was mentioning when we took a look at the top panel of the case. This hub is what controls all of the LED lighting effects for the pre-installed 120mm RGB LED fans. Here you can see all 3 of the pre-installed fans connected. There are an additional 3 ports on the other side for you to install your own fans and add to the system. This hub does not include a fan speed controller. So if you're looking for something that's going to control the speed of your fans, you're going to need a separate fan speed controller. This is only for the Corsair LED lighting effects. If we direct our attention to the top side of the case where the 3 fan controller buttons would be located, we can trace the wires around here and we can see that they lead into this secondary fan controller unit right behind the motherboard panel. This unit also contains 3 buttons where you can change the effects of the fans from this side of the case if you wanted to do that. I'm not used to working with a lot of cases that have a clear side panel on this side of the case behind the motherboard tray. And I think that's for obvious reasons, because this is where we like to hide our cables. Having said that, Corsair has a few tricks up their sleeves to help you with that. This metal channel is designed to help you route your cables and hide them the best that you can, as they're definitely going to be visible in your build. So we've had a pretty good look at what this case has to offer. Now let's jump into the build process and start getting some actual hardware in this thing to see how it treats us. So finally, here we are with the finished build. I think it looks absolutely amazing. When it comes to cable management, you'll probably notice from the time lapse, if you just watched it, that I had a lot of difficulty getting my cables routed through here. There's the little channel in the back side of the case, you have the 3 rubber grommets and the power supply shroud in the bottom. It really ends up being a nice, elegant look, but don't think that it's going to be easy to get there. You've really got to have the time and the patience to put into this in order to get a good quality, clean looking build at the end. Now, if you're considering purchasing this case, it's very important to note whether or not you're going to use a liquid cooling solution. If you're going to use an all-in-one liquid cooler or even a custom loop, and you want to use the top radiator mounts for part of that cooling solution, you're going to need to pay special attention to the cooling solution on the VRMs on the motherboard, and even more importantly, the RAM that you're planning to use. I tried to use these Corsair Fan Series LED modules. Now, you could argue that they're a little bit taller than your average module, but these did not fit with the Corsair H105 radiator that I have mounted in the top position of the case. So I had to switch over to my Corsair LPX low profile series modules, which are fine. There's nothing wrong with those modules, but just keep that in mind. If you're looking at using a specific RAM kit, it may not fit depending on the cooling solution that you use in this case. All right, so we talked about what this case is, what it has to offer, and what it's like to actually do a build inside of it. Now it's time to power it on and take a look at these fancy RGB lighting effects. So we finally have our case powered on, so now it's time to take a look at the lighting effects offered by the pre-installed 120mm RGB LED fans. So we'll start by taking a look back up at the top panel here. This is where we had our lighting controls. So these 3 buttons here will control the color, the speed, and the mode. And there are some preset modes that involve like a breathing effect and some flashing and stuff like that, or even just solid colors, obviously. So let's take a look at the front, and I will cycle through the colors first. So the starting color here is white. I'll go ahead and press the button. It is switched to red, followed by orange, then yellow, then green, then blue, then purple, and then finally back to white again. And you can cycle through those. You can change the mode. As you can see, they kind of cycle through on their own. This is a sort of breathing effect. This is a flashing effect. I'm not sure who would want their computer to flash like this, but to each their own. And then your solid colors. And if you cycle through the modes, there is a mode to just sort of set one solid color. That is probably what I would personally use. I might change it up at different times, but I prefer things to stay one color. Here I've got my camera right up close to the glass so you can see through. I'm trying to give you a view of the top here. You can see where the fans on the Corsair H105 sort of hang down over the memory. This is why I wasn't able to fit my full height Corsair Vengeance LED modules here. I had to switch to the low profile series instead. Everything is very tight, so you can also see the heatsink on the VRMs just above the CPU. It is clearly covered by the fan on this radiator. At the end of the day, I feel comfortable recommending this case to anybody that isn't afraid to get their hands dirty and have a little bit of patience when doing their build. Like I said, the cable management in this case is not the easiest thing in the world. It's going to take a little bit of finesse and definitely a lot of patience. But if you don't mind that sort of thing, then this case is actually pretty awesome. Alright, so that concludes my review and hands-on experience with the Corsair 570X Crystal Series tempered glass ATX mid-tower case. If you liked this video, please consider liking and subscribing to this channel for more product reviews just like this.